Hi everyone, my name is Merina Khanom. I am a mobile product manager at the BBC, and I am so pleased to be with you here today to share with you my journey into tech. Hopefully, it will be useful for those of you who are just starting out in your careers, but equally, I hope that there's a lot of benefit for those of you who are already established in other domains and are looking to make that sideways move. So I'll just share my screen with you. And hopefully you can now all see the deck. Okay, so to begin with, I'd like to give you a really quick overview of my career history. But before I do that, there's one thing that I'd like to just remind everyone. If, like me, you don't have a linear career path and you've tried different things, please don't think that this is a barrier for you to enter the tech sector. I know there are going to be recruiters who make you feel like you're not the ideal fit, but trust me, that is not the case. If anything, you're going to bring a richness and a diversity that the tech sector wouldn't otherwise have without you there. So, um, yes, we will go into details, much more detail further on to explain how you have already got what it takes to be in the tech sector. But to go back to my journey into tech, the first job I landed after graduating from university was in the National Health Service. And this is a place where I specialized in service management. And what that really meant for me was learning what it means to work under pressure and serve both the needs of the users, in this case, the patients, but also the needs of the business. And in, in this context, it meant the healthcare provider. These two components are something that you're probably going to see in many, many sectors. And if you have those two components under your wing, then you are perfectly placed for a product role because that's what you're going to be doing every single day. You're going to be balancing or weighing up the needs of the user and the needs of the business. After leaving the NHS, I went into the charity sector. So I made a sideways move from the National Health Service into the charity sector. I did two different roles there. One was in communications and marketing, which is a great place for me to be creative and expressive and really, hone in on my writing skills. And then I took on what I call a multi-hyphen role, where I was essentially managing. I was the product owner for the charity website as well as the mobile app. I also was a data analyst and also was steering the service design. It's very common in small organizations to wear more than one hat. So for anyone that's had exposure to startup world, it's the same setup essentially. If you're working in a small charity, you get to be so close to the impact of your decisions because you're going to be seeing things through from inception to execution and beyond. And the book really does stop with you. So that was a great experience in and of itself. And that's what my career history essentially was before I landed a full-time role as a mobile product manager in my current organization at the BBC. Okay, so this is the really juicy stuff. This is the stuff that I hope will give you the confidence and the reassurance to apply for a role in tech, for a role in product. These are 5 transferable skills that I believe any product manager needs, and I believe most people on this webinar will already have in the bag. So let's start with curiosity. Adopt the habit now. If you're not already in the habit, adopt the habit of being curious and always asking why. Many of you would have heard of Simon Sinek's infamous TED Talk on Start With Why. If you haven't, it's one to bookmark. But just get into the practice of always being clear on why you're doing what you're doing in your current workplace, regardless of your role. And if the objectives aren't clear, as awkward as it may be to be the one to ask, remember if it's not clear to you, probably not clear to at least a few other people in the room. So be brave, get comfortable being uncomfortable, and making sure you're always asking why a particular thing is being worked on and what you're hoping to achieve as a business from that. How does this tie into product management? Well, one of the key things you're going to be responsible for as a product manager is managing your backlog of, let's say, in my instance, of feature requests. So before I'm able to prioritize them based on any meaningful anything meaningful, I need to be able to understand the value proposition, i.e., what does each individual thing in my backlog, what does it do to address the needs of users, and what does it do to address the needs of the business. Without that, without knowing why that adds value for users and that adds value to the business, I'm not going to be able to prioritize anything in a meaningful way. So get into the habit of being curious. Okay, transferable skill number 2, customer advocacy. This is something that is across so many sectors. People on this call, you probably got this skill in the bag already. But why is it important in the space of product? Well, number one, you need to know who your primary audience or target market is, because without really honing in on that, you're not going to be able to make changes or improvements in a meaningful way. So whenever you're looking at improving your product, you're going to be asking, what pain point have I, alleviated for my customers? And then on a broader level, understanding what are the things about your product that users like and what are the things that they dislike. And then if you take another step back from that, understanding the general market space to get a feel for what do customers like and dislike about competitor products. So even if you're not in a space where you're making these sorts of decisions in your day job, think of yourself first and foremost as a user. There are products we all use every single day. Ask yourself what you like and you dislike about them and what you like and you dislike about competitor products, because first and foremost as a product manager you need to be able to put yourselves in the shoes of a user. So customer advocacy, even if you've not had direct experience of customer advocacy in the workplace, you yourself are a customer of many products. So this is another skill I think you can easily champion. Communications. Yeah. So one of the things that, if you've not worked in product before, one of the things that might surprise you is, whilst you are the product manager of a team, you are more than likely not going to be the line manager for any of those people. So typically, your team will consist of a cross-discipline. Um, so you're going to have engineers, you'll have people from UX, you'll have people from QA, you'll have maybe business analysts, depending on the model your organization has for team structure. But all of those individual disciplines will have their own respective line managers. You will not be their manager. So the question you've got to ask yourself is, how much of an influencer am I? Can I command without having the authority of being the line manager? Because you, as the product manager, you are the one that makes the final decision about what your team is working on next. And they need to be on board with that, even though you're not the line manager. So communication skills are something that you really need to sharpen as a product manager. But the good news is you can do that in any job. So wherever you are at right now, communication skills is something you can really reflect on. Ask your team members to give you maybe 360 feedback and get feedback from your peers, get feedback from your seniors, also get feedback from your juniors, and ask them all, how is my current communication style now? And where does it work and where does it not work? So these are things you can really seek to improve now before you are ready to make your sideways move. Creativity. Now, This one might not strike you in the obvious sense. When I say creativity, I don't mean that you need to have an artistic flair. What I mean in this regard is creative problem solving. Um, Product managers are constantly looking to solve problems for the user and for the business, but they're not going to be free of constraints. We are dealing with real problems, and there are naturally going to be real constraints that come um, in that package. So ask yourself now, how can you become a creative problem solver wherever you're working or volunteering? How can I become a creative problem solver that thinks outside of the box? Hopefully, Picasso's quote that I've included articulates it much better than I'm trying to express it right now. But yeah, the enemy of art is the absence of limitation. So this is a skill. Creative problem solving is a skill that you can really harness wherever you are, whether you're employed or whether you're self-employed or whether you're volunteering. It really doesn't matter. Any sector, any space. This is a skill that you can hone in on and have on your CV to take forward with you for your job applications. Commercial acumen. Um, this might sound a little bit off-putting if you don't have a degree in finance or business, but trust me, that is completely unnecessary for a role in product. What you do need is just to be comfortable with business basics and handling data. Why do you need to be comfortable with that? Well, one of the key responsibilities of a product manager is to be able to make data driven decisions. So you can't make decisions based on what you think is the next best thing to do or what you think will hopefully bring a return for the business or will shift the needle for users. You've got to be able to look at data and patterns and be able to make meaningful um, projections and any risks, of course. Depending on your organization's appetite for risks, they're always going to be ones that are calculated and thought out. So maybe get into the habit now of asking upfront wherever you're working, um, where is the business hoping to make a difference? What numbers are they hoping to change given the work stream that they are um, investing in right now? And what direction do they hope to see those numbers move in? And remember, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. This is probably going to be a really good litmus test for you when you're going back to asking why are we working on the thing that we're working on. It'll hopefully help you to identify where you've got real objectives and where you haven't. So remember, if you're able to identify where exactly you're hoping to change the numbers, can you measure the difference between your starting point and your end point to see if you actually made a difference? These skills all tie together. Okay, so what's next? Hopefully, I've convinced you that you've got 5 skills already in the bag. Maybe you need to hone in on some of them, but I believe that most people watching this webinar have already got those 5 skills in the bag. You're ready to make your job applications and move into product. How are you going to do that? Well, when you're not in that job, you might feel like there's a gap in your CV because you can take these abstract skills that I've just mentioned, but how can you really frame them in a story, in a narrative that is going to help a recruiter or a hiring manager see you for what you are and identify the value that you're going to bring into the company as a product manager? Well, I would say start where you are. So, in terms of the role that you're currently in, assuming you're not currently in a product role, ask yourself, or ask your manager even, or your colleagues, is there a problem? Is there a pain point in the organization that needs a creative solution, that needs a creative problem solver? And then ask them, put yourself forward. Is this something I can look at in addition to my standard responsibilities, my normal day job? Because they've got nothing to lose if you're not going to be giving up your day-to-day responsibilities. and it'll be a safe space, hopefully, for you to be able to exercise all of those 5 skills that we've just outlined, but really give you something tangible that you can put on your CV to say, this is how I put those skills to use. The second thing that I would advise, whilst you're in that transition between wanting to be a product manager in tech and taking the steps to get there, is networking. So you're doing the right things already by attending the webinar like this one, but I would say go the extra mile. Don't just sign up and register and try to absorb as much information as you can from the speaker. Go the extra mile and try to connect with other attendees. They may already be working in the spaces that you seek to be in, and hopefully they can give you a heads up on any upcoming roles. Or maybe, even if they aren't working in the sector, maybe they can just be that friend who's there when you're applying for jobs and you're going to interviews and you feel like you need a bit of a pick me up, because it can be a long hard slog when you feel like you're going to do your day job Monday to Friday 9 to 5, and then you're spending your evenings and weekends doing job applications. But networking is something I would highly recommend, um, to just expand the people in your in your own contacts, who will be able to provide you with that feed into the journey that you're trying to take. Um, yep, and finally, hopefully you're going to be landing, if you're making applications. Hopefully you're going to be invited for interview very soon. And one thing I would say with regards to preparing for the interviews, make sure you've read the job description very clearly, because product roles can vary from organization to organization. Some people, rather some organizations, um, they will reference something as a product manager role, but it might be a combination of a product manager role and a delivery role, or a product manager role and a program manager role. So it's really important to be clear on the job description, of course, and to make sure you know what they're asking for. But assuming you're going to be applying for product roles, if you read nothing else, one book I would recommend is How to Crack the PM Interview. This is something that I read, and this is something I read before my interview, and it does actually talk to you about the different types of product roles within within the within this sector. So hopefully that's something that will be useful for you. And that brings us to the end. I am really, really honored to have been here with you to share my journey. Please reach out to me on Slack via the Product School channel, or reach out to me directly via LinkedIn. I know it's a difficult space to navigate when you're first starting out in your career, or equally if you're not in that space and it feels like something so near and yet so far. But please do reach out to me. Hopefully, I'm living proof that you don't need to have prior experience in tech or prior experience in product to be able to land the job that you want. So that's it for me. Thank you.